You are you, and that's amazing. You're special, you're important, and no one can take that away from you. Hello people of the universe, it's me Elisa, and I was hoping to make this video back in March because that would have been my YouTube anniversary month of creating my channel. And the reason why I wanted to do this video then was because I feel that I'm not the same person that I was when I created this channel. I have grown a lot as a person. I've had some circumstances that weren't the greatest, but I feel that everything in life helps you become who you are, and you can choose to learn from the experiences that you have. And so I wanted to do this because when I first set out to make my channel, I wanted to do something that could serve as a distraction. It can brighten people's day. It can make people feel better about themselves. And I haven't really delved too deep into some of those things, so I wanted to start to explore them a little bit more in depth. I struggle with this still daily. It's something that I've spent the past few years working at and trying to be better at. I wanted to do a little bit of research before sitting down to make this video. Hopefully I'll get this edited and put up on time. If not, you'll understand why. A lot of teens struggle with self-image and their overall perception of themselves. I wanted to see statistically how many people actually struggle with self-image. I still wanted to get this video up today, so right now the statistics I have are for American teenagers, so just bear that in mind because there are cultural differences and disparities that may still play a role. 56% of teens feel that media's advertisements are the main cause of low self-esteem. 20% of teens are either rarely or never happy with their body image, and 31% of teens have at least one body part on which they'd like to get surgery. So these are very concerning things to hear, and I remember when I was a teenager and I was really struggling with who I was as a person, and more specifically my physical appearance, and that was negatively impacting my self-esteem and my mental health as a result. It's very easy to compare ourselves to others. Oh, I don't look like her. I'm not super tall. I'm not super skinny. I don't have this, that, XYZ. It's so easy to fall into the trap where I don't look the way that I'm supposed to. It's devastating to ourselves because we literally tear ourselves apart just for the sake of saying, well, I should look like this and I don't. Being a teenager is so much harder already. You don't need the added frustration and just the burden of feeling like you're not enough. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about my self-esteem journey, my self-acceptance journey, give some tips and maybe advice on how to see yourself in a more positive way. So I had mentioned that as a teenager, I really struggled with my self-esteem and my self-image. And that's something that as a young adult, it still affects me today. I have to come to terms with that and try to not let that deter me from being accepting of myself. That, you know what, I may not look like this, or I may not be a certain number on a scale, but I am who I am, and that's perfectly fine. So when I think about self-acceptance, I prefer that term over self-love just because I feel that self-love requires certain steps. You have to accept yourself, you have to like yourself, and then you can love yourself. Editing Elisa here. I just wanted to take a second and say that not everyone will go through these steps to get to self-love, and it doesn't mean that you have to like every aspect of yourself in order to love who you are as a person. I just wanted to clarify that because it's a little confusing how I explain it here. I've been working the past few years to just accept who I am and embrace the fact that I may not like every single little thing about myself, but that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate who I am as a person. I had to stop fixating on the little things, and for me specifically, I remember that I was so obsessed with my weight for various periods of my life that I would look at the scale and I would say, well, if I weighed this much, if I was this number, it would fix everything. And just because because you weigh a certain number doesn't magically fix all the things going on in your head. So the best piece of advice I can give anyone is to just be patient and be kind to yourself. It's so easy to tear yourself down. It's so easy to think lesser of yourself because we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And when we don't measure up, then that's when our self-esteem and our mental health is affected. I actually read a couple articles and a lot of the tips are gonna be like, well, yeah, I already know that. But basically, it's one thing to know something, but it's another thing to believe something and to practice something. Some of them may seem very obvious and self-explanatory, but maybe they can help if you just give them a chance. Take it one step at a time. Don't try to overwhelm yourself with trying to accomplish more than one thing. Give yourself one goal. Make them small. Obviously, you can have this main goal that you're striving towards. Say that you want to have a positive mental image. Okay, well, what are you going to do to get there? What are the small steps that you can do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to get you to that point? A lot easier said than done, and obviously you'll miss a couple days or you'll forget, and that's fine. Another thing is, don't let your inner critic win. Don't give in to those intrusive thoughts and those negative attitudes that you think others may have of you. Because when you do, then you start to slip, and it's very easy to just keep going and spiraling downward once you let those thoughts win. So instead of focusing on those negatives, acknowledge them, come to terms with them, and see, well, why do I think that? I feel like this is one of the most important things, but not everything has to be perfect. You have to be willing to accept that this is good enough. I am good enough. You don't have to strive for perfection. You don't have to strive for unrealistic expectations. Accept the little victories. If you fumble and you make mistakes, or if you don't quite get to where you want to go, but you get part of the way there, take that win. Appreciate it for what it's worth, because ultimately you're making strides in a positive direction, and that's all that you can really ask of yourself. You're making progress, even if it's not all the progress you thought you were gonna get in the beginning. You have to be willing to accept that this is good enough for now. Spending time with supportive people, filling yourself with positive energy, and letting go of some of the negative or toxic people that you may have encountered in your life or are still hanging around. I know, believe me, it is beyond difficult to let go of people in your life, especially if you're used to having them around. If they've been there since day one, you also have to look out for your best interests. And if all of a sudden the dynamics of your relationship has changed and it has become very negative and very toxic, don't be afraid to just let that person go, because ultimately the people that you should keep in your life should be supportive and care about you and respect you. Taking care of yourself. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you staying hydrated? Are you getting outside? Are you enjoying life? Are you giving yourself enough breaks when you're starting to feel overwhelmed? Taking care of yourself is so important. I still struggle with it. I'm not the best at taking care of myself, and I used to prioritize other people over myself almost all the time, and I let my needs and what I wanted get pushed to the wayside, and I can't help other people if I'm not helping myself. So that's also something to keep in mind. I think the last thing I kind of want to leave off on is you have to embrace who you are. You have to say that you're a good person and there are good things about you and that you're special and you're important. Yes, as humans, we're not perfect. We have flaws, we make mistakes, but that's okay. Everyone does it. And it's okay to work at yourself and say, well, I don't like this aspect of myself, so I want to work to being a better person in this regard. But you also don't need to change everything about yourself to fit these supposed ideals. You are you, and that's amazing. You're special, you're important, and no one can take that away from you. Keep that at the back of your mind, and when you're not feeling your greatest, just remember that you're important and that you are loved and you are special, because sometimes we need reminders. And so if you can keep that at the back of your mind, it definitely makes the day go by a little bit easier. How did I get to this point in my life? How did I get to a point where I'm a good person and that I may not like everything about myself, but I'm okay with who I am? How did I get there? I worked at it for a very long time, and I still make little slips here and there. I've had to grow a lot as a person, and it's still a struggle, but I took little steps. and I may have not been the most consistent, but I just stuck with it. And I said, you know what? I don't need to be a certain number. I don't need to look like a certain person. And I started to appreciate the little things about myself. Growing up, I was very insecure, and I started to let that go. And I've had so many wonderful family members and friends along the way that have helped me embrace who I am as a person, and who have loved me unconditionally and have loved me for me. And I started to remind myself that there are things that I like about myself, and it doesn't make you narcissistic to appreciate who you are. Obviously, there is a line, but when you're first starting your self-acceptance journey and you are trying to find the little things about yourself that you like, don't negate them and say, well, I have this one positive thing, but there's like these 7 negative things that I don't like. Don't do that. Don't let that part of yourself win. It doesn't do you any good. And why would you want to put yourself through that? You have to believe that you are worth it. I've had to struggle and to fight myself so often to get to this point, and I've just started to embrace who I am. I may not fully love every aspect of myself, but I do like myself. These are the things that we have to tell ourselves, that you gotta keep going. You can't let these little things wear you down and break you down, because there's so much more to life than just worrying about what you look like or what other people may think of you. There's so much more than that, and you are so much more than that. I know this may seem kind of preachy and kind of in your face, but I thought that this video was important. I hope this wasn't too all over the place and you were able to get something helpful out of this video. And if you know someone, or if you are someone who is struggling with your self-image and your self-esteem and your mental health, just know that there are people who love you, and that you are enough, and that you don't have to push yourself to these unrealistic expectations, and it's okay to not be perfect. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up to let me know. If you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions of future videos or future topics you'd like me to discuss, leave them down in the comments below, because I would definitely consider making a video on them. So I think that is it for this video. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.